Thank you for the organizers for inviting me. I do not work with, in general, with insecticide resistance, but work for several years with arboviruses. Zika virus is a member of Flaviviridae family genus. You have a single serotype. Is like a dengue and yellow fever is a single-stranded RNA plurisense RNA virus, and it was isolated in the Zika forest in 1947 from blood of sentinel monkeys, Rizzo monkeys, that was placed into the forest to the surveillance of yellow fever. And a virus, not yellow fever, but the Zika virus, following the forest, Zika forest naming in Uganda, was isolated. It has three different genotypes, two Africa and one Asian, and this Asian that was responsible for this pandemic of Zika virus. It is interesting, this paper was published in 2009 by Edward Hayes, CDC epidemiologist, describing the first epidemic of Zika virus in the world that occurred in the Micronesia. And the conclusion of NED that was published in Emerging Infectious Disease was that the emergence of Zika virus outside of its previously known geographic range should prompt the awareness of the potential for Zika virus spread to other Pacific islands in the Americas. And this indeed occurred. That was in the French Polynesia and then Brazil, and after that for almost all countries in the Americas occurred, and not only in the Americas, now it's spreading to the Asian and again in Africa, like a spin-over of the virus for different places. Brazil was surprised in 2014 and 2015 when we have several press news about obscure disease, unknown disease about that occurred especially in the Northeast region, and this occurred because we have together 5 other viruses causing the same disease. That was the 4 dengue serotypes and chikungunya that was a year before introduced in Brazil. And so this only was, well, know what happened because the exam tests were negative for dengue and chikungunya when the Universidade Federal da Bahia and Professor Gubbio campus demonstrated the PCR positive samples from the Camaçari in the metropolitan area of Salvador. And then 2 weeks later, we confirmed also some cases from Maranhão, Bahia, and Paraíba, and also people from the Instituto Carlos Chagas, from Curitiba, Paraná, from the Fiocruz network, positive samples on Natal, Rio Grande do Norte. That was a new virus was introduced in Brazil. The result is the 2 fast publications, the Gubbio in Bahia and the people from the Fiocruz and clinician from the Rio Grande do Norte that was published. But we investigated the introduction of the virus in Brazil, and you concluded that the virus, Zika virus, was introduced in Brazil at least a year before 2015. based on molecular clock studies and phylogeographic study, we can demonstrate that the virus that occur here were very similar, almost identical to the French Polynesia strains that occurred in French Polynesia outbreak as was previously presented by Professor Widely Smith. So the virus was probably occurred during the Confederation Cup in 2013 or 14, before 1 year before the World Cup. And basically, after the introduction of the virus, nobody know how much cases were reported in Brazil. So basically on epidemiological studies, it was estimated by the Minister of Health between 500,000, 1.5 million cases of infection in different states of Brazil. And the spread of the virus was very fast to other countries. As you can see in this map, in Brazil and almost all countries in the South Central America and the Caribbean region were stricken by the virus. And this WHO figure also, we can see that it was very fast, the spread of the virus after that. In June 2016, around the 60 countries were infested and regular transmission of the virus. And on the 5th September, 72, between also 3 months, 12 other new countries or territory reported the Zika virus. So show that the spread of the virus remain active. So now you have 72 countries and territory reported with evidence of Zika. Well, Zika, traditional as other arboviruses, is transmission by vectors, especially Aedes aegypti, but also new routes of transmission were observed: sexual, perinatal, congenital, and blood and organ transplants, saliva, and urine. So it's possible that explain this, how the virus spread so fast in the Americas, more or less for a year, and spread of never seen before. For example, dengue take around 20 years to spread all 4 serotypes in the Americas. Chikungunya is around 3 years, while Zika was so fast, and around 1 year after the description was spreading for almost all countries, except in of Uruguay, Chile, and Canada, the extremes of these continents. So probably the sexual transmission was very important, and this, but it's difficult to explain this in the country that has large amounts of vectors, and so the transmission was dull as caused by the mosquitoes. This is transmission. So quickly, the different mechanism of transmission, probably sexual transmission. This is in April. You have a, oh, sorry, too sensible. Perinatal transmission of Zika in French Guiana, in French Polynesia. The transmission by blood was observed that around 3% or 42 blood donors were positive in French Polynesia during the epidemic. Even these donors were not showing any symptoms or sign of diseases. So it is very important. It is also an alternative mechanism to spread of the virus. In the urine also, it was shown that the virus remain much more time than in the blood, comparing. In the same of saliva, that is also is in blue is saliva. You can see that large amount of the virus is very similar that was found sometimes more than in blood or even together. They are very important for the diagnosis. So Zika virus disease is Zika fever is more or less this, characterized for 1/3 of patients has fever, and another symptoms, in general, rash, edema of joints, and conjunctival hyperemia that we can see here. No? And it's very pruriginous, sometimes the rash. As by 2016 in Brazil, the Zika virus was have a different picture, and this probably due to the temperature, and the winter this year was important, and the number of cases decreased fantastically. But we are worried about this next summer, what happened especially in part of the countries in north and the southern and south, that we have no much cases like occurred in the northeast. So, as a consequence, Zika was associated with the microcephaly, and it was an impressive declaration by the WHO, the Minister of Health, and so on, and the press were very worried about the occurrence of this microcephaly, and because you cannot demonstrate the virus as definitively as the cause of this situation. And occurred when we first connecting the Zika virus with microcephaly after the occurrence of this. Before you demonstrated the virus in the brain of this child, we have observed that 11 days before, the group of Instituto Oswaldo Cruz demonstrated the viral RNA in the amniotic fluid for 2 pregnant women from the Campina Grande, Paraíba, whose fetus have been diagnosed with microcephaly by ultrasound. So it is that we have many different lesions, ventriculomegaly, calcification. This is white, is all are presence of microcalcifications in the brain. Then years ago, 28 in November, we make the definitive connection between Zika and microcephaly that occurred in this, was the report that was epidemiological alert from the PAHO and WHO describing the cases. Also the case that people, adults, that die with this. But the babies was a baby whose mother had Zika virus during 8 weeks of pregnancy, and this baby died 50 minutes after born, and clinically had microcephaly and several congenital malformations, including in the bone is arthrogryposis, atresia of esophagus and trachea, and we found the Zika virus in all tissues that was investigated in these patients. So don't forget that this baby, his mother had exantema and fever with 8 weeks, and the pregnancy was for 38 weeks. So 30 weeks after an infection, you have also the virus that maintained in the brain of this baby, and also in different tissues. And this is the baby with the arthroposes, showing the formation in the bones, and also so microcephalus epidemic is impressive because we have here they comparing the average of microcephaly birth rate per 100,000 live birds between 2010 and 14. You have the number here, and in 2015, the same that's where in yellow, the most impressive increase of the incidence of the microcephaly in Brazil, especially in all states are of the Northeast regions. After that, several reports were describing also the found of the virus, including the electron microscope. They found the viral particles in the brain of this, and also in the tissues, included in the placenta, and showing the impressive neurotropism of the virus in the brain of the babies that were infected. Following various different studies showing that the virus can cause microcephaly in this mice, and the virus is spread and causes calcification also in the brain of this newborn mice, and also and neurospheres that infected the virus and can detect the virus. And together with the microcephalus, we have, as Professor Annelies Wadsmith showing, we have different malformation, perhaps and probably the microcephaly is the tip of the iceberg, because you have difference, including the blindness of this, showing severe blindness of these babies after birth. And very experimental studies also show that the virus can cause a pain with veins in the shedding of the virus in the tears of the mice. So it's also proving that the virus is spread. A very good paper was this study of Patrícia Brasil from Instituto Oswaldo Cruz, and in pregnant women, in a cohort of pregnant women, showing that the presence of the virus, including several malformation here during the pregnancy and after the birth. Sometimes we have a fetal death, but the connotation this that is normal at birth, but by now we are observing that some babies that born that was normal, apparently after some months we are developing some cognitive deficits and some other defects that needed to be investigated and follow up for several years probably. Okay. And this WHO considered this a public health emergency of international concern. A committee was formed, and this is the report of the committee that was published in the Lancet. This is the number of the cases of microcephaly by June, and the countries that reported this is a different countries. In Brazil, the distribution of this microcephaly was not uniform, was so concentrated in this area, in the Northeast region, and very few, this is confirmed cases, is suspected cases. And here you can see that the concentration of almost all cases from the Maranhão to Bahia, that is the region, the Northeast region of the Brazil. Here, the consolidated data from September, you can see here the number of cases under investigation, and also the confirmed cases that was almost all in the Northeast region. I'm concluding. This is a distribution for the Zika and also the notified cases and show. So the Zika congenital syndrome, that's now called the disease by Zika, is a microcephaly in several other situations, including the proportion of cranial facial size, ocular alteration, audiometric alteration causing deafness, arthrogryposis, change and images and diagnostic examination. So to conclude, we have a severe disease in the babies comparing with other situations, but also you have many cases of death, especially in people with immunological disorders like lupus, sickle disease, and other immunological disorders that became in these people under risk of developing severe pictures. So I think that this needed to be alerted because, of course, that no all people with this immunological disorder will develop severe disease or pictures and will die. No, but needed to be alert on these people on the possibility that they developing severe disease, including causes of death that you have observed here in Brazil, 6 cases, and also in different countries we have different reports of a small number of cases of severe disease. In many cases, we accompanied of death in people with immunological disorders. But of course, that microcephaly and all congenital malformation that have been observed in the brain and other organs is much more important, and we need to do all the best to avoid new cases in the roads. Thank you so much.